Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fun Fridays. Today's webinar is going to be all about sheep. I'm just going to have a little look at our participants here and see how we're getting on. Lots of people are joining. Lots and lots of schools. Who do I see? I see Nakani in 5th class. Hi, everybody. Lovely. So I'll just introduce myself in case anybody is new. My name is Amy, and I am the host for Fun Fridays. So this is the second edition, all about sheep, as I just said. And before we get started, I just want to introduce you to our Dig In books. Now, so these are our Dig In books, and these are available to download from our Agri Aware website. So they contain lesson plans for your teachers to take a look at, and there's also worksheets and activity sheets as well. So these are all available for download, and they're completely free, a free resource that is available online. So you can print them out, or if you have a big interactive whiteboard, you can take a look at the lesson plans there. Now let's have another quick look at the Q&As before we get started. Hello to St. Mary's number 2 in Nina. Great, so I think we're ready to get started on our introduction to sheep. So if you were here last week, you will remember that I had a very short presentation just to show you, just to give us an introduction. And then we worked our way through the rest of the material. So the activity for today is we are going to be making some really lovely wool pencil toppers. These guys here. So I'm going to be showing you how to make them, and I have a list of resources that you need to make them. So either you can make them along with me, or you can have a look at the method and make it at a later date with your teacher or at home. So let's get started on our sheep. If anybody has any questions that they want to ask throughout the webinar, you can enter them into the Q&A box and I will answer them at the end of the activity. So we're just going to first take a look at the outline for today. So we've got our introduction. Then I have an educational video on the story of wool. We will be making our wool pencil toppers. And then the second of our quiz challengers will be revealed. So just to remind the teachers out there that the competition will be opening on the 10th of December. So just keep an eye on all the questions and make sure you make a note of your answers. And then we will send you an invitation via email on the 10th of December where you can submit your answers. So you just need to keep track of all the questions and answers for now. And then on the 10th of December, the competition will open. And the potential prize is actually a class trip to Dublin Zoo. That is very, very exciting. So the class who submits the most correct answers to all 10 quiz challenger questions will go into the draw. And if you miss one of the webinars at any stage, you can catch up on YouTube, and that link will be sent out with the instructions for the next webinar. So you'll be getting the link to this webinar on Monday. Now, let's meet our sheep. So some of you might be very familiar with sheep and some of you might have never seen a sheep before. So we're just going to take it back to basics and I will introduce you first to our female sheep. So this is our female sheep here, and it is called a ewe or a yo. So that completely depends on what part of the country you're from. If you are from the West Coast, you will probably say yo. And if you are from a different part of the country, you might say ewe. So I always learned it as ewe, and it just completely depends. Neither one is right or wrong. And then, of course, we have our male sheep here with these lovely horns, and the male is called a ram. And then the one that we're probably most familiar with is, of course, a lamb. And this is the baby sheep or the young sheep before it becomes an adult. So each one of these sheep, they all contain wool. So we get wool from the females and the males. And then with the lambs, it's only when they become an adult that we will actually then harvest some of their wool. So at the moment, if you were a sheep farmer, you'd probably be getting ready for all your sheep to become pregnant. So your ewes will start to become pregnant and they will hopefully then be ready to have their babies in the springtime. We all know that usually March or April is the time, or sorry, February, March will be the time that our baby lambs will be born. So about now is when they will be getting pregnant in time for the spring lamb to be born. Now, at this point, I would like a little bit of assistance from your teachers. So if your teachers are near the Q&A box, I want them to have a little go at asking you guys what we get from sheep. Excellent. Well done, everyone. Thanks for participating in that with me. Very good. So like I said, the basic products that we get are wool, milk, and meat. We'll be going into greater detail on all three of these during the introduction. So the first one, wool, we are going to be watching an interactive video on the story of wool and then doing an activity based on wool. So we'll learn more about that when we watch the video. But for now, I'm just going to take us through milk and meat. So sheep, of course, just like any dairy animal or an animal that is destined to make milk, they can actually be milked. So like we learned last week, again, they have an udder that you can see up here. But the main difference between cows and sheep or ewes, because of course the females are the ones that make milk, is that they have 2 teeth instead of 4. So cows have 4 teeth and sheep and goats, they just have 2. So if we have a little look at this milking machine here, you can see the movement. It's very, very similar to how we milk a cow. Again, there's a light pulsing, and that light pulsing encourages the milk to come out of the udder, through the teat, and into the milking machine. So just like we learned last week with cows, it's not painful. It's just a very gentle pulse, and that makes the milk come out. So before a sheep is actually able to make milk, they have to, of course, have had a lamb. So once they've had a lamb, their body again will start naturally producing milk to feed their baby lambs. And if they are going to be baby lambs that are kept for meat, the lamb will stay with their mum. And then for milk, the females will go off to the milking parlor and the milk will be extracted that way. Now, if we move on to meat, we had some great suggestions earlier on. So yes, of course, the meat that we get lamb and we also get mutton. So lamb chops or a roasted leg of lamb, like you can see here, made with lots of lovely rosemary and garlic and some gravy. So lamb is the meat from a young sheep that is less than 1 year old. So this is not going to be necessarily a tiny baby lamb like you might see that comes out of its mother. It's when they're a little bit older. And on average, so lamb meat will come from a 5 to 6 month old lamb. And at that stage, the lamb actually looks pretty much already like an adult. So that's lamb. And the best way to do that is kind of to go for a roast leg of lamb, really tasty and succulent, and the meat is very juicy. And then when the lamb grows up and becomes an adult, so over 1 year, that is when we would call the meat mutton. So mutton is much better suited to stews and casseroles because the meat can be quite tough. And if anyone has ever had stew before, maybe Irish stew, they know that that meat is cooked for a very, very long time. So it softens the meat up very well so that it's nice and soft and tasty to eat. Now, I need another bit of help from your teachers. So I'm going to look at the Q&A box again. And the help I need from you guys is about countryside dangers. So can you have a think? Are there any animals that can harm sheep or their lambs that we would have to be worried about? So have a think about the countryside and what kind of animal dangers there might be for sheep or for lambs. Can see people popping into the Q&A. Oh, brilliant. I've got my 2. Brilliant. Lots of answers coming through there. So a few of them I'm going to tackle now. So one of them would be mink. I saw a few people mention mink. And mink, I don't actually have a picture of them here, but they are what we call an invasive species. So that is a species, they come from America and they don't naturally exist in the wild here in Ireland. And the way that we've grown to have such a large population of them is that they have escaped from fur farms. So mink would be kept on fur farms and then their their fur would be harvested to make coats or potentially big blankets. And when they escape into the countryside and they start to breed and have lots of babies, then their population starts to explode. And they can actually harm small little lambs. So they're quite small, they're much smaller than a sheep. But if you had a small lamb that was outside, it would definitely be very threatened by a mink. Weasels, again, the same thing. Weasels are very, very small, but they are carnivores and they are predators. So they could definitely harm a little lamb. Somebody said a bull. Yeah, very good. We wouldn't want a big bull to be anywhere near a little lamb. That wouldn't be a good idea, but usually they'd be kept very separate. What else do we have here? And then there's some very popular answers that keep coming up. So fox is one of them. Absolutely. Foxes are definitely, definitely dangerous. And then other people have said wolves. So wolves in a different country, so on mainland Europe, not in Ireland and not in the UK, there are wolves, but in Ireland, we don't have any wolves anymore. They were extinct a very, very long time ago, but definitely in other countries, wolves would be a huge threat. So the largest kind of carnivore that we would have that we'd be concerned about would be a fox. So red foxes, they can be very dangerous for young lambs. And then, of course, there's badgers as well. Badgers would be very unlikely to actually attack a small lamb, but if they found a lamb that was quite sickly, they might attack a lamb. Thanks so much for interacting with me there, everybody. That was brilliant. So we have our first scary predator that we have to be worried about, our red fox. So red foxes, there's lots of them in Ireland, especially in the countryside. And they will, of course, attack a lamb if they get the chance. They usually won't attack a sheep because they're a little bit too large for the fox to be able to get at, but it is definitely a concern for farmers. So even if they actually don't kill the lambs, if they don't kill the sheep, if they give them a big fright, this is also something that we'd be very, very concerned about. And that actually brings me on to my next point. Lots of people actually brought up dogs. Brilliant. So we definitely have to be concerned about dogs in the countryside. So if you have a pet dog and you live in the countryside, especially during lambing season, you really shouldn't let it roam around the countryside without a lead because it can scare or attack small lambs. So again, even if they don't kill them, even if they just chase them and you think that they're playing, that can really, really scare the lambs and scare the sheep, and it can end up actually killing them in the long run. So you really have to be careful around lambing season. And if you're going to bring your dog out and about, always put it onto a lead. This is so, so important. But I'm sure all of us are very responsible dog owners, so we already know that. So I've just got this symbol here of this person, and they have a lead on their dog. Very, very important. Even if your dog is a small little dog that you don't consider to be too aggressive, they are animals and it is in their nature to chase things or to maybe play with different animals, and they can really harm little lambs and harm sheep. So it's so, so important that we keep them on a lead. Let's have a double check and see. Oh, somebody said badger. Yeah, so we mentioned that. I'd see a few people saying seagulls. Seagulls, what we'd be concerned about with seagulls is definitely if there was a lamb that was a bit sickly, the seagulls might come along and they might try and hurt their eyes, which we definitely don't want to happen. But we wouldn't be too concerned about them because they're not large enough to actually attack and kill our lambs. And somebody had mentioned magpies as well. So that'd be the same thing. If there was a sick lamb, we would definitely be concerned about magpies, but otherwise they wouldn't be able to attack. Oh, somebody said people or robbers. That's a brilliant one to consider. Absolutely. So because lambs are so small, people either they want to, steal the lambs because they think it's funny, or they want to steal the lambs for their own gain. That's definitely something to be concerned about because, of course, your animals as a farmer, you are your property. And if someone takes them, they have stolen from you. So that is definitely something to be mindful of. Excellent answers there. Brilliant. I hope I was able to address most of your queries there, everyone. Lovely. we are going to watch the story of wool. Let's just get rid of my laser pointer. So this is a short video that I've created that just teaches us the process of wool. So once a sheep has been sheared and all of their wool has come off their body, it goes off to be processed before it ends up as actual wool that we use. So just going to play this video for us now. We can sit back and enjoy.
This is the story of wool. Wool comes from sheep. Some sheep graze in the mountains, and they are very good at climbing and moving around on the steep slopes. Other sheep graze on flat ground. During the summer months, it is too warm for sheep to keep their fleecy coats, so the farmers must shear them. Farmers shear their sheep to keep them cool in the summertime. Some shears are electric, and this cuts the sheep's wool very fast. Other shears are shaped like big scissors. Once the wool has been removed from the sheep, it can then be sent off to be processed. The first step is to clean the wool. This is called scoring. The next step is to comb the wool to make sure there are no knots. This is called carding. After that, we must spin the wool. This is an example of someone doing it with their hands. This takes a very long time. To make the spinning process faster, wool can be sent to a factory. These big machines make it much easier to produce lots and lots of wool. When the wool is ready and has been dyed, it is sent to the shop to be bought by you or your family. There are lots of colours to choose from. And that is the story of wool. Thanks for watching.
And that was the story of wool. So that takes us through the process for wool. So let's stop sharing my screen for a moment. Now, that was the story of wool. So that took us through the process right from shearing the sheep. It gets too warm in the summertime, so you've got to shear the sheep of their coat so they can be nice and cool. And then we clean it. And then after that, we have to comb it through to make sure there's no knots. Then we can spin it. And then at that stage, we can dye it and send it to the shops. So if anybody is going to work along with me for this next activity, all you need is your 1.5 to 2 meters of wool here. And we just want to make sure that there are no knots. So just slide it through your fingers like so, and just make sure there's no knots in your wool. That's perfect. There's no knots in my wool. And then in order to get ourselves ready for the next activity, I just want you to cut off about a hand's length of wool. So just see how long your hand is and hold it there and just cut that little piece off at the end because we're going to use that to tie our wool pencil topper. So then you are left with one small piece of wool like this, that is the length of our hand. And then we have our much longer piece of wool here. So the way that I'm going to do this activity is I'm actually going to play a video that I pre-recorded so that you can see exactly what my hands are doing. But all you will need for this activity is your short piece of wool, your long piece of wool, and then your index and your middle finger. And we're going to wrap the wool around those fingers in order to make ourselves our pencil topper. So this is our pencil topper that we're aiming to make. And if you're ready, I'm going to play the video and we can all work through this together. There we go.
Let's make wool pencil toppers. You can choose any colour you like. You could even mix 2 colours if you wanted. I've chosen this purple-blue colour to make my pencil topper. First, we must make sure that there are no knots in our wool. This is important so that we can wrap it easily around our fingers. You need an additional small length of wool for the end, which I have over here. Now let's take a small piece of sellotape and stick it to our index finger. Be very careful when using sellotape and always use a scissors to cut a small piece. This piece of sellotape will help to keep the wool in place while we wrap it. Attach the long piece of wool to the sellotape and begin to wrap the wool around your 2 fingers. Make sure you keep your fingers as wide as possible so that it's easy to take the wool off when you're done. Take your time while wrapping the wool. Remember, we don't want to have any knots. When you're done wrapping the wool, gently pull it off your fingers and place it down on a surface. Get your small piece of wool and place it on the surface in front of you, and place the rolled wool on top. Then tie a double knot as tight as you can. There's one. Pull it tightly. And a second one. You may need a partner or a grown-up to help you with this step. You must make sure that the knot is as tight as possible. Now hold the wool bundle at the center between your fingers and make sure that all of the loops are out straight. Hold the wool bundle between your fingers and with the scissors, cut the loops on either side. Even if your scissors is not very sharp, it should still cut through the wool. When working with the scissors, be as patient as you can and take your time. Make sure that all of the loops have been cut so that we can have a very fluffy pom-pom to go on top of our pencil. Once you think you've cut all the loops, have a check of your pencil topper and make sure that all of the loops have been cut and that it's shaped and spread in a nice pattern. If there are any stray pieces of wool sticking out, you can cut them off. I found an extra loop that hadn't been cut. Now once this is ready, we can get ourselves our pencil and we will use this as the base for our pencil topper. You will also need a piece of sellotape. Be very careful when cutting the piece of sellotape. Now we're going to loop the tape back on itself so the outside is sticky. So you just need to roll the tape around in a circle and then attach it to the top of your pencil. This makes the top of the pencil very sticky and allows the wool to easily attach to the top of your pencil. And that's it, you've made yourself a wool pencil topper.
Super. So that was our wool pencil topper activity. I had a little go while I was watching the video there. So I've made another one that I'm going to attach to another one of my pencils. I hope you all got on very well. And it's just about time for our second quiz challenger question. So if you are still in the middle of the activity, don't worry about it. You can finish it at a later date. If you were just watching along, don't worry. The activity is going to be going up on YouTube, so you'll be able to access it then. But also, you might have remembered the method. It's very, very simple. You just need tape, a scissors, your middle and index finger, and a pencil. That's it. So for our quiz challenger question, hopefully everybody is ready. I've got the card ready to go here. I'm going to read it now. I read it once and then I'll repeat it. What is a male sheep called? So remember, this is for your quiz challenger question to enter the competition on the 10th of December. So just make a note of the question and your answer. What is a male sheep called? Super. So that's quiz challenger number 2. Brilliant. So one person had put that into the Q&A box. So just keep a note of that answer. And when we send you the competition submission form on the 10th of December, you can submit your answer that way. So just remember your answer. I'm going to sign off now. Thanks a million for everyone who participated today. And if you make our wool pencil toppers, or if you have any pictures of yourselves participating, if your teacher puts something on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, you can tag us at Agri Aware. So I'll see you next week for cereals. Goodbye.